There is an expression I'm sure many of you have heard, fools go where angels dare to tread. Well, you're looking at the fool this morning, because I'm going to attempt to explain to you two contemporary issues that are affecting our church and have made their way into the media and therefore into the public mind. And a number of people have asked me to explain what is going on. The last time I was asked was just a few days ago. There was evidently a group of people who meet for prayer. And believe it or not, they were meeting at Seed to Table. And these issues came up. So what are the issues? The first one has to do with Bishop Strickland, Joseph Strickland of the Diocese of Tyler, Texas. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this case, but it has been in the news. He is the one that the Pope has removed from his diocese as being the bishop of the diocese. The second comes from the Congregation, or now the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which talks about the possibility of homosexual persons and transgendered persons being baptized or standing as sponsors for the sacraments. So I will try to handle both of these issues. Certainly, it does require much more time than I have, but I will do the best I can to provide you with the salient points of each situation. Bishop Strickland, Joseph Strickland, was the bishop of a small diocese in Texas called Tyler, Texas. It's about 55,000 Catholics in that diocese. He has recently been removed from office by the Pope, which is a very highly unusual action. The reason why it is so unusual is because a bishop, according to church teaching, and most especially emphasized by the Second Vatican Council, is that the bishop is the bishop of a diocese not because the Pope sent him there, not by the authority of the Pope, but in his own right, he rules the diocese, teaches, rules, and sanctifies as a successor of the apostles. Hence, when you see the bishop wearing a ring, that means he is wedded to the diocese as the chief priest of that diocese. So this is a highly unusual move. Now, why would a bishop be removed? Why would a bishop be removed? Well, it might be because there are canonical reasons. And these are the reasons that are presented to us in canon law. The bishop is in heresy. He's teaching false doctrine, okay? False doctrine, let's just say false doctrine would be Jesus was really not God. That's a false doctrine. Or he is in schism. That means he has in some way separated himself from the church and says, I'm starting my own church because I believe that the church is wrong on a certain issue, and therefore I'm separating myself from the church. Neither of these things are present in the removal of Bishop Strickland. There also may be another cause. It may be because of a criminal activity. Criminal activity would mean there is malfeasance in the diocese. That's not there either. So what could be the reasons if there is no canonical cause and there is no civil cause? Why would the Pope remove Bishop Strickland? There is no official reason given. There is no official reason given. First two cases, we can't find anything there. When the Pope issues his letter of removal, there does not have to be a reason given. So there is no reason stated in his letter of removal, which was delivered to him by the Apostolic Nuncio in Washington. Now, something else you have to keep in mind. Not only is there no reason given, but once the Pope makes a decision like this to remove someone, there is no recourse either. You cannot appeal it. So no reason, no appeal. And you might say to yourself, well, that's not right. As Americans, that does not resonate well with us. It's certainly not something that we're used to by either the common law or the civil law. However, we're dealing now with what we call Roman law. This is Roman law. And in Roman law, the Pope is the lawgiver. As a matter of fact, he's above the law. He does not even have to follow canonical procedures. Now, I believe we should follow procedures, but that's me. I'm an American, and I believe we should follow procedures. I think it's a good thing to do. I'm not a big fan of executive orders. Let's put it that way, okay? Now, because he is the lawgiver, he is also the one who enforces the law, the magistrate that enforces the law, so that he does not have to abide by canon law. He can make the law. He can make the law, and he can apply the law without any reason given. That's what happened in the case of Bishop Strickland. The only reasons that perhaps may have led to this, although they're not stated, and they're not criminal, and they're not canonical, is perhaps he was deemed to be not being fraternal with his brother bishops. Now, what does that mean in layman's language? It means he wasn't a team player. Okay? Some say it was because he was very strident in his remarks about some of the things going on with the Vatican, especially the synod that just closed at the Vatican. It's a synod on synodality. He was very, very strong in his opposition to the synod. And maybe in some of his remarks about his brother bishops and Rome, insofar as how they are handling or not handling politicians who are allegedly Catholic and who are pro-choice. But that is speculation, and that's all we have for now. Now, some people say to me, well, what happens to him? And this is the best. I'm giving you speculation. We're on the cutting edge here, gang, at St. Agnes. All right? Bishop Strickland is technically, as far as I know, still a priest of the Diocese of Tyler. So people say to me, well, what's going to happen to him now? What does he do? Well, I would think he'd probably not be saying public masses, probably, but he's not going to be out on the street either. I don't think so. I think probably they give him a stipend, make sure that his needs are taken care of, physical needs and living needs and health insurance, and make sure that he's not out on the street. So that's one consolation that I think we can take from this situation. That's where it stands right now. I know that if we were meeting at seat to table, we'd have a lot more questions, wouldn't we? Well, maybe someday we'll meet and talk about this if I'm still here next week. Okay. Let's take a look at the last case scenario. The last case scenario has to do with the baptism or sponsorships for those people who are homosexual or those people who are transgendered. All right. Remember this. There is a rule in the church, and it shouldn't be something that we're surprised at, but a lot of people are. The safety of souls is the highest law. The safety of souls is the highest law. So that when the church applies the laws of the church, and when the priest applies the laws of the church, that's the first thing that we have to keep in mind, the safety of souls. Now, when the congregation handed down this teaching, I'll tell you what it is in a moment, they said this: it is up to the judgment of the priest as to how to apply it. All right. I have known a lot of priests over a lot of years, and for the most part, we know an awful lot about people who come to us for the sacraments. Some people we might not, but for the most part, we know an awful lot. And we are able to what we call pastorally apply the church's law to each individual situation. We can apply the law to each individual situation, keeping in mind the safety of the person's soul. So some bishop, I think it was Brazil, sent what we call a dubia to Rome. And a dubia means, like, we have the word dubious, question. What do we do in these cases? So suppose you have two people who, or even maybe one person, who is homosexual, and they adopt a child. The question is, can we baptize the baby? To me, it's a rather simple answer. The answer is there's a very low bar as to, if you try to bar somebody from baptism. I mean, it's just because the parent is homosexual, you do not deny the child a life of grace. And so, yeah, as long as it's not going to be a public scandal that somebody's, making a cause célèbre out of this. You see, you could be a homosexual, you can adopt children and use this as a promotion for a certain lifestyle. Okay, so priest has to apply that and, within pastoral boundaries say, sure, yeah, but, let's not go out there, advertising that, see, anybody can do it, it's perfectly okay. Well, each situation has to be judged in a separate case, and believe me, folks, we know how to do it. Your priests know what they're doing, believe it or not, even me, all right? Okay, second one comes up with transgender persons, all right? A lot of, this is a new one. We've never heard this stuff before, have we? It's rather new. But the questions are, suppose somebody comes in that's transgendered. All right, if somebody comes in and says, I want to be baptized, and I am in the process of transitioning, I think the wise priest would say this, look, maybe you should think this over, because mutilation is a mortal sin. And that's what happens with a transgendered operation. You mutilate the person. And therefore, the church does not approve of that, because it's a violation of how did God make me, either a man or a woman. So that's a case where you say, let's, think this through, and maybe even try to convince the person not to go through with the surgery. However, then, as time passes, person comes back, what do you do then? What do you do then, all right? Remember, the safety of souls is the highest law. Safety of souls is the highest law. So this person comes back, has transitioned, and says, I still want to be baptized. If the person says, yeah, look, I know I broke the law of the church, but I still love Jesus, and I still want to be a practicing Catholic, what do you do? Well, just like you do with anybody in confession. Look, it's happened. It's too late. You can't change what's already happened. You can't say, go back and have it done all over again. God forbid, twice. I think the wise priest would say, in that circumstance, okay, we're going to open you up to the life of grace. All right? A more difficult problem would be, suppose you have transgendered persons who decide they want to get married in the church. Now, that's a very difficult situation. Why? Because, first of all, a marriage is between a man and a woman. In this case, we don't know which is which. And marriage is also open to the procreation of children, which is an impossibility. So I would say that case for marriage would be out of bounds. One last case, suppose you have somebody who brings in a baby to be baptized, and you find out that the godfather, godmother are homosexual persons, all right? As long as, once again, this is not being used to publicize, to garner attention for a certain lifestyle, or in any way to scandalize, once again, the priest has to use his discretion as to the permissibility and as to whether or not they're going to allow this person to represent the church as a sponsor for baptism. So today, what am I going to ask you to do? We took in a lot. I know you have a lot of questions left, but number one, pray for the Pope. Number two, pray for Bishop Strickland. Number three, pray for your priest, because it ain't easy.